Scott Wadle again from the Planning Department, here to present this item. So this item, as you heard, is to consider whether or not to extend the interim controls which prevent a demolition permit from being issued for the demolition of the Crown Uptown Theater. The recommended action is to take action as determined necessary by the City Council. This item is being presented today because council members have inquired about the status of the demolition permit. And again, this item is to determine whether or not to extend the interim controls. The process for consideration of interim controls is established in the municipal code. You can see the section here. When a demolition permit is applied for and when the subject property is a Wichita undesignated historic resource, then the preservation planner may place interim controls on the property prohibiting any alteration or demolition for up to 30 days. The City Council may extend interim controls for up to 180 days. In terms of the background, the Crown Uptown Theater was constructed in 1928. It is not listed on the National, State, or Wichita Registers of Historic Places. It is identified as an undesignated historic resource by the City of Wichita in the Wichita Historic Preservation Plan. Here's the aerial image from the site there at Douglas and Hillside, just about. An older photograph. Here's a more recent one. In terms of the process, in 1998, the City Council approved the undesignated historic resources list, again, as part of the Historic Preservation Plan. On July 27th, the applicant submitted a demolition permit. On August 10th, staff notified the applicant of the interim control being placed on the property, and again, that was for 30 days. On August 11th, staff sent a letter to the applicant requesting thoughts and feedback on alternatives to the demolition, and on August 26th, the current interim controls are scheduled to expire. The interim control extension period can provide opportunities to continue to explore alternatives to the demolition. It can also provide time to determine if the property should be listed on a historic register. If the property is listed on a historic register, then a review process would be required for demolition, and the demolition could possibly be denied. Here's another photo of the site and the surrounding area. This is looking from the side, from the other side, across the street, looking down the street to the east. These are photos from the interior. These are from the webpage. These are not recent. And so the recommended action, again, is to take action as determined necessary by the City Council. In terms of process, staff recommend that you accept public comments, both from the applicant and from members of the public. And the City Council has a variety of options available, including extending or not extending the interim controls. Again, if they are not extended, they would expire on August 26th. And I do have a brief update, and that's a note that I received an email from the property owner today. So last Friday, following agenda review, it was in the afternoon, the owner sent an email to me with an appeal of the 30-day interim control period. That appeal goes to the planning director, so I need to schedule a meeting with the property owner to discuss that. So just know that that is in progress. And yes, so with that, I will stand for any questions.
Scott, thank you for that presentation. There's some missing information from that, and that is that this application, a similar one, came before the council last year. Can you give a little bit more background regarding 2025 and what happened similarly? In addition, it also failed because it needed a supermajority in order to put it on the historic registry. Can you just kind of walk us back to 2025?
Yes, ma'am. So that is in the staff report, and it started on February 5th of 2025. Then what happened was a very similar process. There was a notification. There was a notification indicating that interim controls were placed on the property. On March 4th, the City Council considered extending the interim control, and they did so for 180 days. On March 7th, staff hired a consultant to assist in reviewing the property and whether or not it would be eligible for listing on a historic register. Then on June 9th, the Wichita Historic Preservation Board reviewed the potential nomination and voted, I believe, it doesn't say here, but I believe they voted to indicate that it was eligible. On June 26th, the Planning Commission likewise reviewed the nomination and found it was in compliance with adopted plans. On July 15th, the City Council considered whether or not to place the property on the Wichita Register of Historic Places, and ultimately that vote did fail. My understanding is my recollection is that it required 5 of 7 votes, and it did not meet that threshold. And so on August 4th, the 180-day interim control period ended. Now, between August 4th of 2025 and July 27th of this year, my understanding is that the applicant did not follow through and complete the application process for a demolition permit. And so that's why this process is before you, again, is because a new application was required because the timeline exceeded 180 days.
Scott, going back to July 15th of 2025, that vote failed not because of a simple majority, but it required a supermajority. Is that accurate?
It required 5 out of 7 in order to place a property on the Wichita Historic Register without the owner's consent.
So in other words, even if that vote were 4-3, it would still fail. Is that accurate?
And that is my understanding, yes.
Okay. I want to know if extending this interim period will result in a different outcome. I know you have not met with the applicant, that is going to be part of the process if you're supposed to meet with the property owner. Do you believe that this will result in a different outcome? Because this application for demolition is very similar to the one last year.
Yes, I don't know if it would. You have the same owner with the same property, so I don't know that it would lead to a different outcome.
So what would an extension really accomplish?
Well, the extension, what it does is it would delay issuing the demolition permit, and it could provide an opportunity to explore other outcomes. But again, I don't know how successful that would be. Yes.
So what you're telling me is that even if we kept delaying this, you're not certain that there would be the outcome that is, I guess, a lot of community residents have reached out to me and the council, and they want to know what can happen, again, because the city does not own this property. And can you also explain, did the city ever pay to build this building? Has the city ever paid for anything regarding this building? And has it ever been considered that the city pay for this building?
In terms of the first question, is it likely to result in different outcomes? Again, the same property owner. In terms of the other option that exists is one that you've alluded to, which is the city council could vote to place it on the Wichita Historic Register. But again, we've gone over the scenario of what the votes are required for that. In terms of the city's participation or funding at all of the building, I'm not aware of the city ever contributing funding for this building. I don't know if there was an arts program or something that maybe performances that took place there, but my understanding is the city did not pay for the construction, nor has there ever been involvement from the city in the building.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Glasscock.
Thank you. I think you maybe have alluded to this already. Has the applicant been in communication with our department, figuring out questions regarding, has shared walls with neighbors? Have they been responsive to any inquiry from our department?
I mean, part of that, when it gets to the shared wall, that becomes more of an MABCD issue, so I'll defer to representative from MABCD. But in terms of the alternatives, we have heard, again, back from the applicant or back from the property owner on Friday that they were appealing the process. And then earlier today, there's a pretty substantial email that I still need to go all the way through, but it appears that they're contesting the process, but did not disclose alternatives that they want to explore.
What does the appeal process look like if the 180-day hold were to be put on today? What does the appeal process look like in the midst of that? Does it have to, so let's say we do 180 days, they appeal. Well, then let's say they don't like the decision. Usually the appeal can come back to the city council again at that point. And so what's that process? Because maybe both of these things are working in tandem at the same time.
I'm going to look to legal to correct me if I get any of this wrong, but my understanding in looking at the code is that the property owner is able to appeal the initial 30-day interim control that's placed on the property. And that sequence of events is that first the appeal would go to the planning director, and then following that, the appeal goes to the city council. If the city council places or extends beyond that 30-day period, I do not see in the municipal code that there is an appeal process for that.
So it could come back to us, his appeal could come back to us if you don't, let's say, grant the appeal.
I think that would be a question for legal, but I don't know that it would, because if it gets extended here today beyond the 30-day process, I do not see an appeal process for that. If you decline to extend it, then yes, there is a possibility that it could get appealed to the city council, but before that would happen, the planning director would have to deny the appeal. And if the city council has already denied it, I don't know that I would be inclined, but we'll see.
So theoretically, let's say this 180 days is granted, there's not another option for that to be extended beyond 180 days.
No, there is not.
So 180 days, final, end, this quit's coming before the bench.
Assuming that something changes with the property, that either gets demolished or it's sold or something, we could run into a scenario where nothing happens for a period of time, the permit expires, and they're back in this process.
Okay. Thank you for describing a very complicated process. I appreciate it.
I see no further questions from the bench. Thank you, Vice Mayor Glasscock.
I have one more that I underlined that I meant to ask as well. In our packet, it says specifically that staff shall document the resources with photographs and or measure drawings. Shall is probably contingent on the applicant allowing us into the property, because this doesn't give us ability to enter the property without their permission, correct?
That is correct. And furthermore, if I could, I would add that when we hired the consultant to help us out last year, they were able to document the property with photos and whatnot. I don't believe that they gained access to the interior, but they documented it based on what they saw available online.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Shepard.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And Scott, I asked this question at the agenda review, and I want to ask it again. So the mayor asked for a brief history of what happened when tried to place it on the local Wichita Historical Preservation list. That vote was 3-3. I believe the mayor was not present at that meeting. As she mentioned, you needed a supermajority, which would have been 5. And I know that looking at the minutes from that previous meeting that some of my colleagues were really concerned about property rights, which we kind of heard of that today. I'm curious, since it is attached to another building, what are the implications if a demolition were to take place? Would this have on that attached building where there is also a property owner separate from the Crown?
Sure. Fantastic. I'm going to defer to my colleague from MABCD.
Good morning, Mayor, council members. Chris Labor, MABCD, excuse me. And yes, to your question, Councilman, as part of their application prior to us issuing a permit, we will require the contractor to provide us a plan with preserving that wall. At this point, the contractor has indicated to us they have not received permission to evaluate from the neighboring property's side, so they would have to receive access, obviously, to that property for part of the demolition in order to ensure that preservation takes place. But they would have to just that, preserve the wall, not damage that wall or the neighboring building. And if so, there would have to be a form of agreement to repair if there was something to take place, some damage was to take place.
Thank you. And given what you know about demolitions that have happened in the past in the city, would you expect that the adjacent property owner would potentially need to stop whatever operations there? I mean, we're talking demolition, so to have operations still going on while a demolition is occurring, I'm not saying it can't happen, but can we for sure say that the demolition would have no impact on their business operations?
And that is a good question. We'd have to defer to exactly what the neighbor, of course, has going on at the time. I do, my understanding, which may not be correct, but my understanding is that actual portion of the building is not currently being utilized. That would obviously help. But I would say that I would speculate that, yes, for some time, there would be an interruption to their operations. I would not expect that to be lengthy, but they would probably have a day or two in which that would be interrupted.
Okay, and I know that I believe it formerly was the Flying Pig Improv that was directly right next door, but I know that there's a law firm and then there's a skin studio as well, and I would assume that any demolition taking place is also going to impact them. And just I say that because it's germane to what we talked about earlier. We were very concerned about the operations of a building in District 6 and how this delay on fixing the roof and things of that nature could impact operations. I just want to apply that same philosophy to this particular situation as well. Thank you, Chris. I do have a couple more questions for Scott, if that's okay, Mayor. Thank you. Scott, walk us through, very high level, what is the purpose of going through a neighborhood plan for a neighborhood, and who is responsible for holding individuals accountable to honoring the details of a neighborhood plan?
Sure. Well, when it comes to the process for developing a neighborhood plan, it's usually, I would ballpark it 6 months, maybe sometimes a year, maybe more, depending on the complications. But first of all, we generally get a steering committee, which is made up of volunteers or stakeholders from the area. They're the ones who guide the process. Planning staff then work typically with a consultant just because of the amount of staff that we have. We typically hire a consultant to help us out. And we take them through a process of identifying what do they like about the area, what do they want to see change, what are some challenges, what are things that they'd like to see continue. And then ultimately, through a variety of public input processes, a plan is developed, and the plan identifies what the vision is for the area and then what actions are necessary to help kind of achieve that into the future. In terms of who holds who makes sure that people are accountable for implementing the plan, that's something that I'm trying to work on very hard as the planning director. We're working towards having a regular set of implementation progress reports that come out. And as part of that, we are surveying the individuals or organizations that are listed in the plan with an accompanying action item. And then we develop a report that we distribute to the public and especially to the stakeholders who help create the plan. And the idea being that the stakeholders who were invested in the plan or represented by the plan would be the folks who would probably be most interested to know how progress is going.
Thank you, Scott. I just want to mention that in the College Hill Neighborhood Plan, the historic preservation character of that neighborhood is mentioned 66 times in that plan. To this neighborhood, that historic nature is critical to them, and it is listed that Crown Theater is a cultural hub or visit site for that neighborhood. I say that to say this is why I think that this is bigger than just property rights and really just what the neighborhood wants. I'm really trying to figure out how we meet in the middle. And that 180 days, the reasons why I've asked my colleagues to reconsider interim control for 180 days is because I believe that I am owed my due diligence to try to engage with all parties as much as possible because I owe it to my constituents to honor the work that they have done in that neighborhood plan. And I told them that when they were working through this plan, and I was asking for their support to represent them, that not only should I honor that plan, but I think we all should honor that plan when we're telling a community, spend X amount of dollars to go out and talk about the future of your neighborhood. But then when something like this occurs, we then say, well, that's property rights. That's not really anything to do with what you've said that you wanted in your neighborhood. I think that the neighborhood's voices have been very loud and clear. We have overwhelmingly over 70 calls and emails in the affirmative of preserving this building, and they continue to come in even as we are in this meeting. So I think overwhelmingly the community is speaking that this building holds significant meaning, but I also understand that we owe it to both the owner and the community to figure out if there is compromise before we do something or allow something that's irreversible. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you, Scott. This is a question for you, I'm assuming, or maybe Director Magana. So we received and I know you mentioned in the letter, if you answered this, I apologize, okay? We received an email this morning from the owner of the property. Did you receive that as well? Or you were?
I did.
Yeah, at 8:50, when we were walking in. And it's a request for informal hearing and protective objection. And so the property owner is asking for a 180-day delay so that there can be some sort of hearing. Are we obligated to have this hearing? Is it a request? I'm sorry, I'm not sure. I've never seen this before, so I just want to understand.
My understanding is that there are two ways that this item can get to the city council. One is if the applicant appeals first to the planning director and then appeals second to the city council. So that is one route to get an extension, to get the interim controls considered by the city council. The second way is if the city council takes up this item. And so I requested to place this on the agenda because there have been council members who are interested in this. And so that's why this item is here before you. I think what was contended in the email, again, I've not thoroughly enjoyed it this morning, but I think what was contended in there was that this process should not proceed because the applicant has not worked through the appeal process of the 30-day interim control that was placed by the preservation planner. Now, the response, my thought to that is that the city council, the code does not specify that that process has to occur first. The code leaves it up to the city council on whether or not to extend 180 days. And also, given that there's a 30-day time limit on the preservation planner's interim control, timing is very much important on this one, so that's why this has been placed. And that's why I submitted it for placement on the agenda.
Okay. So 180 days would give time for all the things. And then he also mentions, like, no one from the preservation, no preservation representative met with me, called me. So a delay would kind of make sure that all of his issues are taken care of, and is what I'm understanding.
Yeah, it would allow time for dialogue back and forth. In terms of whether or not anyone has contacted him, we did send a letter with options to consider. I don't believe that we heard back from him regarding that. I did hear back again from him. It was on Friday. He was appealing the 30-day interim control that was placed by the preservation planner. I indicated I would get back with him on Monday. It didn't happen. I need to get back with him, but I also want to see what the outcome is from today's meeting before we schedule that with him.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick follow-up to what Councilmember Tuttle just asked. You just mentioned that there were options that were presented to the property owner. What were those specific options?
I don't remember them specifically, but they're very general in terms of would he look at, I believe one of them was using the property for a different use. Has he explored other uses if he says that the theater is not viable as it is? Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but they were just a list of like 3 or 4 general options. We really see it as a way to start the engagement of the dialogue. We sent him a very similar letter when we went through this process last year.
I'm sorry, one more follow-up before Councilmember Johnston. I have gotten those positive emails about preserving Crown Uptown as well. And I believe from this council, we're all in agreement that we appreciate this building. I've attended multiple events at Crown Uptown. However, we as the city of Wichita do not own this building. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is correct.
And the city of Wichita has no intention of buying this building. Is that accurate?
I would defer to the council on that one.
That's a no. We're not buying the building.
There we go. So I think I'm looking at each of the council members. I do not want to buy this building on behalf of the citizens of Wichita. And the council member who represents that district also has said no. So really, again, a private property owner owns this property right now. The city of Wichita has not paid any dollars to build this building. And there's no intention from this council to buy this building. Therefore, that's why I'm asking, what's going to be different in delaying this process? Do you believe that there is, one of the options that you've presented was a different use, but you also have said that there are other options that you can't remember? I just want to know what will be substantially different this time than last year.
We have started the engagement with the property owner. I don't know if they will have a different opinion. I doubt that they will based on the communications that we've received so far. Yeah, I don't know, ma'am, but we would go through the process.
Councilmember Johnston.
Thank you, Mayor. Got a question for MABC Director Chris Labrum. Chris, if the property owner just backed a backhoe up there and started to tear this down, what would the fine be?
So the first action we would take, sir, is to stop that action. And a property owner is not allowed to wreck or demolish or raise a commercial building. That's in place for public safety. And as we discussed previously, in this case, there's a neighboring building that we would have to preserve. We do not really have a fine in place for that. The current mechanism for beginning work without the proper permits is that you pay a double fee on top of the normal fee for the permit. Now, where a wrecking permit is only $50, that would then mean they would incur an increased $150 fee. Additionally to that would be whatever costs or issues came from them beginning that work and then having to stop it.
Okay. You may or may not know this, but what's the value of that building on the tax rolls? Do you know that?
To my knowledge, the appraised value of that building is just under $300,000 for tax purposes.
Tax purposes? Okay. What is the value of, if it was a vacant lot? You may not know that. Per
I
square foot?
will have to look. I think the lot, let me see if I have that in my folder. I believe the lot is being valued at around $80,000, but I will try to check that if I can find it quickly. So, and I'll correct myself a little bit here. I'm showing the 2026 appraised value of land at $34,400, the building at $182,000, for a total of $216,400. Now, again, that's for taxing purposes, so I'm out of my depth in speaking to how that would relate to market value or sale value. That's purely tax value.
Do you have any comments of what the empty lot would be in that area?
I do not, sir.
Do not? I would say substantially less than that. But, okay, thank you. That's all I've got.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mayor. And I think you asked a very valid question in regards to what's different. I honor that. And I know many of my colleagues have asked when I've asked them to support bringing this up and having this conversation out loud. And I know that I've said this over and over again, but I'm going to beat the drum over and over again. I think what is different is we had a community go through a detailed plan to collect data about the priorities that were important to them. And on the page of, I think it's page 33, question 18 specifically asked the communities, respondents were provided a list of 30 potential projects or programs, all proposed during the public kickoff, and asked to identify their top 7 priorities to be addressed in College Hill. The following is the order of the priorities with corresponding numbers of votes. Number 1 on that list is preserving historic housing and preserving historic neighborhood character. That was 287 individuals who said that this is a priority to them. Number 1. And so as we talk about being data informed and we talk about building trust with our residents and constituents, I think one of the best ways we can do that is by listening to their voices, both the qualitative and the quantitative. You said that you received lots of calls. I've received lots of calls and emails, and that said 70, but that doesn't include the many Facebook messages and comments. But I think we also have the quantitative data as well. In addition to that, this council voted on the College Hill Neighborhood Plan and voted to accept that College Hill Neighborhood Plan. And my understanding is that when a council chooses to accept that, that is a commitment that we're going to do everything within our power to try to hold to purpose. It doesn't mean that we will always do that, but to try. The county then adopted that same neighborhood plan in August of 2025, followed by the council in July of 2025. So that brings me back to, I believe we owe a good faith effort to demonstrate to this neighborhood and constituents of Wichita that we hear them, and though we cannot predict what the outcome will be 180 days later, which by the way, it's only up to 180 days, we don't even have to take the full 180 days, to say, private sector, do your thing, and also we are doing what's within our scope in saying we want to be able to provide you the opportunity to have those conversations to see if we can come to a mediation or compromise.
I'm going to ask a quick follow-up to Councilmember Shepherd. This is your district.
Yes, ma'am.
Is 180 days what you're considering, or is something shorter than the 180 days?
I would like to take the up to 180 days, but I do know that I've spoken with individuals within the private sector who have been actively trying to reach out to the owner and have those conversations. And I'll stop there, but they are wanting to have those conversations.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you, Scott. I'm going to ask you one more question. And I know we all got this letter and this email late, and I'm sorry to be redundant, but I just need to make sure I understand. The owner of this property wants a delay. Is that correct? He had a number of issues. Am I reading that right? Or from my colleagues who read it, it sounds like he's the one right now who's asking for the delay. Is that correct?
Again, I don't know. I just saw the very beginning of it, so I will defer to you. But I do know that he wants to appeal the 30-day interim control. So my assumption is that he wants the interim control to go away based on that appeal.
And that means, in just kind of like, neighbor to neighbor language, he wants to appeal the interim control to go away. What does that mean?
That would mean that he would be able to proceed with his demolition permit.
Okay. And if I'm inaccurate, I'm sorry, but the way I'm perceiving the letter, he's listing all the things that were supposed to happen and didn't, and it sounds like he's the one who wants the delay. Because I think the issue that's very hard for us all here is there are property rights, but we all love the Crown, and we hear from the community that they want to keep it. But by delaying so that his requests can be addressed, it seems like it's going to be a benefit at this point for everyone. So if I'm misinterpreting it, because again, it's a very legal document, it's infused with lots of legal terms and such. So I could be misinterpreting it, but from how I read it, he wants the delay. So just FYI.
Vice Mayor Glasscock.
Thank you. My question was in line with Councilmember Tuttle's. So the interim control period ends on the 26th. August 26th is the date that we have in this green period. If he appeals that decision, that's going to delay it further than the final interim date of the 26th. So
correct.
My understanding would be that he's also requesting a delay to the 26th. That's next Wednesday. And I believe that there's probably no city policy that says an appeal happens within 8 days.
I'm sorry, if I may, I interpreted that he wanted a longer delay than next week.
And I will say I never got the email. The mayor forwarded it to me, but he had misspelled my name in the email. So.
Just because even the letter being received this morning also justifies, having more time to be thoughtful and intentional. And I could be misinterpreting his letter. I fully understand that. But the way I have read it and the email, it sounds like he wants a delay to be able to see some of the things that were supposed to happen.
And if I may, Mayor and Council, having knowledge of this, I think the only thing that he's requesting is that Council defer this item until the 30-day discussion that Mr. Wadle referenced does occur. So if Mr. Wadle and he meet later on this week, I think that is what he wants, and then for council to determine. But that is how I interpreted the request from. It's just about this item being deferred until what's been offered already for him and Mr. Wadle to meet. But that does not exclude council from acting on the agenda item in front of you.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Manager, for that clarity as well. I would just humbly request from my colleagues that we consider the item before us today. I would like to be in the room when those conversations happen, and unfortunately, I will be out of town on business for the City of Wichita for the remainder of the week.
Okay, I see no further questions from this bench at this moment, which means we can now open it up for public comment. We ask that you please come to the front, state your name and the district that you reside, and you will have 5 minutes each.
Stephen Holt, District 1. May I quickly ask for an extension to the time only to address the shared wall situation, as I am the shared wall property owner. I have a prepared speech, but I'd like to address that part first since it was before the council.
Could I? Sure. So before we begin your speaking time, because I'm going to ask MABC if it's appropriate now or when we ask from the bench further clarification. We'll start with public comment first, and then during council member, when we bring it back to the bench, we have specific questions, which will be the shared wall. You can address the shared wall.
I have tons of information on the shared wall, whether I've been contacted, so thank you.
We'll start with public comment, starting at 5 minutes.
Very good. My name is Stephen Holt, and I wear 4 different hats related to the Crown Theater. I am the president of the College Hill Neighborhood Association. I serve on the College Hill Steering Committee, which was responsible for the College Hill Neighborhood Overlay Plan. As we just discussed, I own buildings on both sides of the Crown Theater with partners. And 4, I live and work, make my livelihood and my home in College Hill. As evidenced by the outpouring of public support here via emails to all of you, online petitions, and all the social media input, I think it should be very clear to this council that the residents of Wichita feel passionately about preventing the demolition of the Crown Theater. I echo that sentiment, but rather than give you an emotional story about neighborhood love and historic charm, I want to give you a slightly different take. I want to take you on a brief visual journey. I took some photos, and there should be copies in front of you. I apologize, those were not emailed in time to get them on the screen here. The first is a photo of the area that was supposed to be the water walk, almost 20 years after ground broke, and that's still vacant land. The second 2 photos are of the area surrounding the Wind Surge Ballpark. We're now 7+ years into that development, and there are 6-foot tall weeds that dominate the landscape. I'm showing you these photos to show that dreams of development grandeur take a hell of a lot more than dreams. To go from dirt to development takes significant finances, business savvy, vision, and relentless fortitude. Properties in the hands of developers or property owners that don't possess those skills end up looking like those pictures. Mike Brown is not a developer nor a builder, and he certainly has proven that he possesses none of those skills. The next picture in front of you is of present-day Crown Theater. Then the last picture is what the Crown Theater could look like as a neglected site owned by a, quote, developer and preservationist that, frankly, doesn't give a damn. To date, no plan has been submitted to the city or MABCD for what will replace the Crown should it be torn down. What sense does it make to tear down a building that, by the way, has standing offers to purchase from me without an approved plan for what's going to go there? The building and lot is landlocked on all 4 sides. I own buildings on the two east and west side. Another landowner owns building on the south side, and on the north side is Douglas. Without a plan, and the fact that it's landlocked, to Councilmember Johnston's point, means that what gets constructed there are very minimal things that can be constructed there that make financial sense. Mike Brown had the Crown for just over 2 years before he ran it into the ground and closed it. Other owners managed to run it and keep it open for nearly 100 years. Isn't that interesting? That certainly doesn't suggest Brown has the pedigree, experience, planning, or fortitude to execute the demolition of this building and a rebuild of something in its place. A much more likely scenario is he tears it down, can't figure out or execute anything else to build, and the city and College Hill neighborhood is left with a very unmarketable, landlocked parcel of land that sits vacant for years with 6-foot tall weeds, leaving an entire neighborhood and city wondering what if. The most prideful neighborhood in Wichita, along frontage of the major artery of Wichita, to which this council and this city, Douglas, has spent decades propping up, could look like that picture in front of you. I understand property rights. I've been in real estate for 30+ years now. But some things are bigger than others. Some things warrant saving. Your job, your duty today, is to do whatever you can in your power to give this building every shot. If that means additional private sector meetings by people like me, great. I believe a gentleman by the name of David Bayouth, I don't know if he's here, has also started a public petition with his own visions. There are ample private sector solutions to this problem. Mr. Brown has not responded to comments, questions, emails, anything from me for almost 2 years now. I've reached out to his attorneys, to him personally, everybody I could think of. I have 20 seconds left real quick on a related note. This council should be aware that the existing mortgage on the building is due in full September 11th, 2026. What different may happen? Well, September 11th. I hate to use that date that way, but September 11th, 2026 may happen. A bank's going to want their money. Mortgages are public record and kept on file with the Sedgwick County Register of Deeds. I've reviewed the mortgage and shared it with several interested parties. Furthermore, council should be aware, may I have 30 more seconds? Who do I ask? Furthermore, council should be aware that the sole signer on that mortgage is Damon Bedell, who is listed as the managing member of Dive In Properties, LLC. Damon is also a Tulsa area businessman. Anybody who knows about commercial mortgages knows that signers of business mortgages are often personally liable as well. Continued communication needs to not only include Mr. Bedell, but he should be the primary recipient of these communications during this next 180 days, should it be granted. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Stephen. We'll ask you during council member comment to talk about the shared wall.
Please do. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Andrea Bell. I live in District 1. I'm a constituent of Joseph Shepard's. I'm also a resident that lives at 3232 East 1st Street North, which is exactly 1 block away from Crown Uptown. And I would like to say that I don't want to see this beautiful historic building, which many people I know personally have had their relatives like grandfathers and such take them to plays at Crown Uptown. So I ask that you delay the demolition of the building and grant Mr. Shepard's request for a delay of at least 180 days, please.
Thank you. We'll continue with public comment.
My name is Sybil Strom. I reside at 326 North Walnut. I don't think the city should take authority over the Crown Uptown because I've seen the Dodge House. It's not getting done. It's just being an eyesore. And if the guy wants to destroy the Crown Uptown, it's his business. You guys came on my property. You did not even ask me what I wanted. But the Crown Uptown has been there for a long time. I think the mismanagement of his mismanagement. It used to have theater, programs, but it's his business. Don't try to tell him how to run his life. You tried to run my life. Look what happened to me. I got homeless. It's not right. But I think you should not be the ones running the place. You don't know how. You don't know how. Dodge House has been an eyesore. I've gone down that place. It's been an eyesore. And then there's other places that you have, the city has, that are eyesores. Down by Walmart, the grass hasn't been cut. You don't know how to run your business. And I'm sorry to say, you don't. I know for a fact, if you would have called me and told me about my house, I could have reconsidered it, but you didn't. But this is on the Crown Uptown. You need to butt out of people's business. I'm sorry. You have butted in too much. If he wants it done, let him get it done. But let him pay out of his own pocket, not the taxpayers. Because he could have done a little bit more managing. He could have got people like music theater, probably could have brought in some people. You don't put a strip joint. He had strippers in that place. I do not consider that good business. But you got to butt out of people's business. All of you. Even the city manager needs to butt out. And the attorney. She's been an eyesore to me for a long time. And I want the records of that deal that went through on my house. And I immediately want it. But on this Crown Uptown, don't you butt in. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Eric Westbrook. I live in District 6. Good morning, Council. Yeah, like a lot of people, the Crown Uptown is important to me. I grew up in Wichita. I grew up in College Hill. Spent a lot of time going to the Crown Uptown. I moved away from Wichita, and even living in California, when my wife and I were getting married, the Crown Uptown is where we wanted to do it. So 2013, we came back here. We brought all of our friends from California. They had an amazing time at the Crown Uptown. So, I mean, it's a cool place. It's special to me. But more where it relates to me now, what I do in my career is I'm an ex-Google software engineer who now supports independent venues. I'm in the National Independent Venue Association, which is why I'm wearing the shirt today. So this matters a whole lot to me. And frankly, it's kind of disappointing listening to council members really talk about property rights over what I feel is your more important duty, which is preserving our history and our culture. I think that there is a balance in that. I don't expect you to buy the Crown Uptown, but I do expect the city to actually put forth even monetary means to support it. There's also talk of what a top 50 city would do. A top 50 city would support their independent venues. I'm going to Chicago next month for Riot Fest, where their mayor and their city council will be in attendance at independent venues, supporting things just like this. So yeah, I just want to remind you that it is your responsibility. It is your duty to protect the arts, I think, over personal property. I'm disappointed to see what happened last year when you had the chance. I think it's up to the community now. I hope we don't blow it. I hope you do your part to get us there. Thank you.
Councilmember Ballard.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry, sir. What did you say the event was in Chicago?
Riot Fest.
What is it?
Riot.
Riot. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of the council, and my fellow citizens. Let me start by giving you my bona fides. My name is Christine Ledden. I reside in District 3. I have a master's degree. I am an MBA, and I have a almost 26-year career in finance, specifically real estate finance and accounting. More importantly, however, I look at your faces and I recognize some of you. And if you imagine a crown on my head, you might recognize me too. I have represented the city of Wichita as the queen of your Renaissance Festival for 26 years, the oldest continually reigning monarch of a community festival in the country. I bring this up because I have access to a community that most people don't see. And it's vital and it's strong and it deserves a venue worthy of it. Over the years, all of the theaters have died because streaming services have basically taken them out. People watch stuff at home. But if you look around, the little festivals, like the little Chinese festival we were talking about this morning, and Riot Fest sounds like a lot of fun. We have New Age festivals, we have cultural festivals, and the Crown Uptown could be a vital part of that landscape. So I urge the council to please, I know there's a consortium out there, I can't reveal who and what and where, who are willing to buy that building. I keep hearing, oh, the city doesn't want to buy it. Fine, don't buy it. But help those people who want to buy the building to come to the table, get an offer that the seller and owner of that building will accept, to walk away, and let's get, I consider the Orpheum Steering Committee to be the gold standard of how a venue should be run. Let's get something similar for the Crown Uptown. Let's get a vital community behind it and a steering committee to run it, and let it last for another 100 years. Its community and its district and its historic value to that district is undeniable. With creative minds, young, enthusiasm, energy, passion, expertise, we have all these things. Long ago, the legendary President John F. Kennedy said about the space race, we don't do it because we choose to do it, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. He was talking about going to the moon. Well, in some ways, this is kind of a lunar landscape, but without tiles. We don't have to deal with tiles on this one. But ad aspera per aspera, to the stars through difficulty. Please give the 180 days a chance. Let that consortium prove that it has a viable solution. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll continue with public comment.
Good morning. My name is David Bayouth. I live at 719 North Brookfield Street here in Wichita, and I'm the director of the Save the Crown Uptown campaign, which is a very new group of enthusiastic people. And part of what we're doing right now is operating a petition. The petition's only been up for, I think, about 7 days, and we're up to over 1,300 people that have signed the petition. I think we've had over 100 since this meeting has started. So we're picking up momentum. I do think it's a crucial thing for Wichita for you guys to listen to the people, and the people are speaking. I had a handout on a preliminary plan of the use of the building that had some different things that I don't think had ever been considered, and I don't know if I can use if it's not good at the moment for the overhead, but I do have copies of it. Can I pass that out now? Yeah. Okay, here we go. Okay, I understand the concern about government interfering with property rights. I'm a property owner too, but property rights aren't absolute. We all live with zoning, easements, building codes when there's a good reason for them. So the question is whether the public interest in a 98-year-old Wichita landmark justifies intervention before it's torn down. What exactly are we demolishing the Crown for? The Wichita Historic Preservation Board voted unanimously 5-0 to recommend historic designation of the Crown. That ought to mean something. Now let's talk about money. The Crown contributes to our tax base. More than $6,000 in property taxes last year. Plus, when it's operational, it also raises sales tax revenue as well. The Crown does not consume municipal tax dollars. It helps generate them. Now tear it down, and what do we have? About a half an acre of vacant land. Which has the greatest taxable value, the Crown or an empty lot? And how much sales tax revenue does an empty lot generate? I think we were starting to talk about that earlier. We're working to show the Crown can succeed financially and preserve a historic landmark. So the bar for tearing it down should be higher. Before we destroy it forever, the owner should tell us what comes next. What's the plan, and what does Wichita gain that's worth losing the Crown? And part of what we'd lose is the theater itself. Our metro area has well over 500,000 people, yet outside the Crown, our private dramatic theaters generally seat about 200 or less. That limits the productions Wichita can attract. The Crown fills that gap. The stage is here, the seating is here, the building is here. Tear it down, and someday Wichita may need exactly the kind of theater we just destroyed. What's it going to cost us then to build another one? In just the last few days, we've learned a great deal, and our plan is already formidable. And let me be clear, I'm not asking the city to buy or operate the Crown or taxpayers to support it. We want the Crown to support itself, and it historically has done that. Actually, I mean, it's just this last owner that I think has expressed an indication that he's not able to operate the business and keep the lights on. I brought the one-page preliminary plan, which I've handed out to you guys. We'll be posting that too on our Facebook page later for other people to read. You can see there are 4 parts: theater, facility rental, membership, and community. We think all those have a viable alternative. But I mean, I don't really know that we need to defend the operation of the Crown. It's been operational for almost 100 years, and just recently now there's a problem. So, but what we basically recommend is to use the building, keep the theater at its heart, and put the rest of the building and the rest of the calendar to work. We don't have proof of our numbers. We're just
David,
forming this plan.
Sorry.
Oh,
Thank
sorry.
you very much. I want to be respectful of
Oh, yeah,
everybody
I'm
else's
sorry.
time. Everyone gets 5 full minutes.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to be respectful of everyone else.
I could go on that. Is there questions that you have of me at this time from what I handed out or anything like that? No? Okay.
Thank you, David.
Hey, thank you for your time.
Good morning, Mayor Wu and City Council members. Celeste Bogart-Reset. I'm a Wichita native. I was born and raised here. I walked to OK Elementary School, Hyde, Robinson Junior High, and East High School. They're all historic buildings. I grew up in a 100-year-old house in College Hill, and we are one of the longest living families in College Hill. Proud of that fact. Historic buildings are important to me. I have lived in historic homes. I have served on historic boards. The Wabash Valley Historic Trust, Hills and Dales Historic Neighborhood. I was the founding president, and I'm honored to currently serve on the Wichita Historic Preservation Board. It is important to preserve our historic buildings. In 2010, Mr. Chung and Project Wichita stressed the desire of younger generations to live in renovated historic buildings. He believed the character of Wichita's historic buildings was essential to our identity as a city, and they needed to be preserved. I take servant leadership seriously and have done my part preserving our heritage. As founder of Save Century 2, we collected 17,265 signatures to prevent destruction of Century 2 and the former Central Public Library. I adopted the flower beds in the area, and with donations from local businesses, including Lowe's Home Improvement and Treetop Nursery, and the help of many, many wonderful volunteers, we planted 1,000 flowers in downtown Wichita. We did this to honor the legacy of our first Black mayor, A. Price Woodard. We did this to honor the gift of gratitude from our sister city, Orléans, France, and we did this because dirt and weeds in our downtown core is totally unacceptable. In the 6 years of this volunteer effort, I have seen a triple designated historic 2-story building, Meads Corner, torn down to make way for a 3-story office box building at Emporium Douglas. Tax incentives were given to IMA for this project. The 5 parking lots and the buildings surrounding this property are not on our tax rolls. They are tax exempt. The tax-exempt income we are missing out on this property was supposed to generate revenue to support the CID. It is less than $1,000 a month. So you have to ask yourself, was tearing down this triple designated building worth giving up $150,000 for city funds and $250,000 for the school district? I don't think so. So I want to just close by saying Wichita's historic buildings are important, and whatever you all can do to save them is critical, and I would think something you would take seriously. College Hill is my family's neighborhood and has been. As I said, we're one of the longest living families in College Hill, and I respect what David Bayouth is doing, what Steve Holt is trying to say in front of you as the College Hill residents, and I would hope you can do all you can to save the building, but I respectfully defer to your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Celeste. We'll continue with public comment. I see. Oh.
My name is Kathy Fati. I'm a lifelong resident of Wichita. I have lived adjacent to College Hill, although I've never lived in College Hill. And I'm only able to echo some of the things that have already been said and to add maybe my 2 cents, which I think represents the view of a lot of the residents of Wichita, is that the Crown has been very important throughout my life. As a child, I went to matinees and movies there. As a young adult, I was a waitress, and a cocktail waitress and a bartender at the Crown Uptown Dinner Theater. Have incredible memories of that. To me, it's just unthinkable that we would change. It's not a skyline per se, but it's just the view we have of Wichita. My favorite view in the whole city is from about Roosevelt looking west, and you see, the hill starts to go down. You see these beautiful buildings, the Crown being really the crown of those buildings, and I just think it would be like knocking the front tooth out of a historic part of our city. The historic parts of our city include Delano and Riverside and College Hill, and this is all pre-war buildings, and we lose some of that every year, and we never rebuild that. That never comes back. So to me, it seems incredibly important that we find a way to preserve it, I know that people have tried very hard to work with this owner, and I think we need to try harder. Anyway, I think there's a lot of potential with this building. I think a lot can be done with it, and I really hope that you will decide on, at the very least, let's have that 180-day delay so that hopefully the vast majority of people want in the city, we can accommodate and we can utilize what we have and not throw away our past. And thank you very much for listening to me.
Good morning. My name is Mary East, and my address is 5240 North Oliver in Bel Air, Kansas. I'm here because I want the Crown Uptown to stay in Wichita. That's really the heart of it for me. I was born and raised in Wichita, and as many others have fond memories there. I have even performed there myself. There are buildings you drive past and hardly notice. The Crown Uptown, it's one of them. It has personality, it has history, it has a presence in College Hill that you simply cannot manufacture in a new building. You can build something new on the same piece of ground, but you can't recreate all the nights people spent there, all the performances, celebrations, and concerts, or that familiar Crown marquee that has been a part of Wichita for generations. I also think Wichita citizens deserve the opportunity to participate in this discussion. The response over the last several days show that people are interested. They're signing petitions, and they are showing up. The public interest should count for something. So I'm asking council to give this effort room to grow and to not give up on the Crown Uptown that easily. I'm asking to keep the Crown standing and give the community a fair opportunity to work on its future. Sorry. Please stop the demolition. And if you're not prepared to do that today, please give the people working on this the full 180 days to see what ideas and what they can accomplish. Let's find out what this building can still become before we decide what it used to be. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon now. Mayor, City Council, for the record, my name is Brock Booker, living in neighboring nearby District 2. Again, my name is Brock Booker, and I'm a member of the Historic Theater Association of Kansas, and I've spent my work, a lot of it, on some of Wichita's stages, with the Wichita Symphony Orchestra Chorus, with the Rise Ensemble, in venues exactly like the Crown Uptown. I want to name what's actually before the city. The demolition application is being framed as a property rights question, and property rights do matter. But look at the sequence. A capacity expansion was denied over fire code violations, and a demolition permit was filed. The historic registry was proposed and then voted down, taking the building protection with it. The theater went dark in December. The phone was disconnected. A show was canceled without explanation. The neighborhood association couldn't get answers, and then another wrecking permit. That is not a business winding down in good faith. That is a pressure campaign, and the community is the pressure point. Consider it this way. A contractor comes to your door and tells you the roof has to come down or off today. He won't show you the inspection report. He won't return your phone calls, or he won't return your calls until you sign. And every day you hesitate, he reminds you the damage is getting worse. You do not call that a free market transaction. You call it what it is. And that is the posture this city is being asked to accept. Sign here or lose it. When demolition becomes the penalty a city pays for enforcing its own fire code and listening to its own residents, we are no longer talking about owners' rights. We are talking about whether Wichita's public process can be held hostage. And what happens here writes the playbook for every difficult property owner in this city. If filing a wrecking permit after every unfavorable vote proves effective, you will see it again on Douglas, in Delano, in every historic corridor we have left. Property rights end where coercion of public process begins. But I'm not here only to say no. There's a demand for an 850-seat historic house in this city. There are operators, nonprofits, and preservation buyers who make projects like this work across Kansas. What's missing isn't a market. It's a willing seller and time. The city can provide the time through rigorous review of this application, code compliance, historic significance, protection of adjacent structures, and through an extended moratorium, like the 180-day extension this council considered in 2025. And the city can help the broker with the conversation that finds the willing buyer. The Crown has survived 98 years of Kansas weather, depressions, and changing taste. It should not fall to a negotiating tactic. Protect the process, and you protect the building. Lose the process, and no building in this city is then safe. Thank you.
We'll continue with public comment. I see.
Christopher Parashow again. This time I'm wearing a little different hat as a member of Wichita Independent Neighborhoods. It's our objective to try and help neighborhoods who need it wherever possible. And one of those efforts is advocacy. In this case, I think I want to thank Councilmember Shepherd for his pointing out that the neighborhood has worked with the city to develop a plan for its future. And that includes this property and other properties around it. They are a jewel in College Hill's crown, so to speak. And I think without spending any more money than the city already has on the neighborhood plan, which is in the tens of thousands of dollars to develop that, the city can help facilitate at this time a deal, hopefully, between the current property owner and maybe potential buyers, or even someone who can manage it for the property owner if they don't want to sell. There's a lot of discussions that I think are just being pushed away because the property owner didn't get what he wanted. So hopefully, if you give this process more time, then maybe something can be agreed to where we don't lose a historic structure and we're able to revitalize it and bring it back to life to the way that it used to do, the way it used to be able to provide for the neighborhood and provide for the city with tax. Thank you.
Okay, you're perfectly fine. Can you please come to the microphone? Can someone help him with the microphone,
I can
please?
stand up. Okay. Howdy. Yes, this is the first time I had a council meeting for me. I was born and raised here in Wichita, 67 years, and I'm coming up here to tell Mr. Glasscock is my captain. I live down off of Carter, south of Carter. But as someone who's born and raised here, we cannot let that Crown Uptown. I just read a deal about some kind of 180-day thing, but we got to put it on a historic register, or you cannot give him a demolition permit. Because if you do, it'd be like swatting a hatter's ass. I mean, and then the people in College Hill, I can't speak for them, but we cannot let one of our historical buildings go. If that guy tried to tear it down, and probably people chain themselves to it, kind of like we chain ourselves to Century 2 or Tripodial. No, you're not going to tear a Tripodial on Century 2 down. So I'm just coming up here to say we cannot let that man. We got to buy him out. The city of Wichita, we bought the hotel out. We just don't let that one go. Because, and I think I speak for most everyone in Wichita was born and raised here, but we can't let the Crown Uptown go. There's got to be someone with some money that'll make something, keep it as another dinner theater or whatever. So that's what I come up here to talk about. So you just might keep that in mind because there's a lot of people in Wichita that's watching that big time. All right, thank you.
Sorry, sir, can you just tell us your names for the record? You can tell Shanita, our city clerk. Can you share your name?
What's your name? Gregory Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Councilmember Ballard.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Rose? Mr. Rose? You don't have to come back. I just want to tell you Okay. Come over here. I just want to tell you thank you so much for taking time to come to the
While I
council
was
meeting.
here, I had to talk to a detective. I had a drunk hit me on my Harley and about killed me 14 months ago, March 2nd, underneath the bridge at Seneca and Kellogg, and ran. Has never been caught. And Annette Lawless, investigative reporter 12, she did a deal on me. I was on the news at 6 o'clock July 3rd. They're trying to help me catch whoever did this.
Whoa.
And so I never got a witness statement because the trauma nurse that was on scene and the man that put the tourniquet on and saved my life, I've never got a chance to thank them.
Well,
But I also got pictures of a possible suspect. Because no one got a tag because I was shooting blood. That's what the ELO said.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, we got flock cameras. That's a whole nother discussion.
Well,
that was not used, and this person's still out here. They're going to kill someone else or kill themselves. And I made it 67. I'm lucky I'm even breathing because I lost over 10 quarts of blood and collapsed lung and everything. 2 months in the hospital. The drunks are just out of control. And the motorcycle. A young man lost his life just last week.
Yes.
To a young drunk.
Well, I just wanted to tell you thank you for taking the time to come and share your thoughts.
Well, I was here and I thought, I got to talk to someone about that, the Crown Uptown, So this is my first meeting. Thanks for letting me speak. I've been to county commission.
Feel free to come back any Tuesday.
The jury room, on YouTube and all that. But it's the first time in the city. Thank you.
Mr. Rose, thank you for exemplifying public engagement and public comment. There's always an opportunity for individuals to come and speak.
We're supposed to vote. People didn't vote this last deal. It's just embarrassing.
I really appreciate you exemplifying that, and that is why we have 5 minutes per person to speak. I actually was with other electeds from around the country whom only get 3 minutes maximum for the full meeting, no matter what the subjects are. So I want to just share with you all that here, this council is willing to listen. willing to understand, and willing to compromise. And so I'm very grateful to you, Mr. Rose, and thank you for utilizing the microphone, not only to share your perspective, but also at the same time, sharing about the incident that happened on March 2nd. And I hope that whoever's watching, and as our media partners are here in the audience, that your story needs to be shared, because someone needs to be held accountable for their actions in causing that accident, and so, or that crash. So again, thank you for sharing your perspective regarding this topic, but also adding additional color to why you wanted to speak and speaking up and using that microphone to, again, elevate something that was important to you. So thank you, Mr. Rose. We will continue with public comment. Okay, I see no one else from the public who would like to speak. Thank you to the 12 individuals who spoke on behalf of this item regarding the Crown Uptown, which does reside in Councilmember Joseph Shepard's District Number 1. We will now bring it back to the bench. Councilmember Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. I do believe with something this important to the community, we need to take as much time as possible to do due diligence. I hear a lot of questions still to be answered from the community, so I will be supportive of Councilmember Shepard's motion here. Also to the Queen, it's just another dignitary, another feather in District 3's cap, so I appreciate all your work over the years, and I will make sure to stop by at this next year's festival. I think your Regency will still be going this year. I appreciate that, so I'll make sure to stop by. Thank you for coming down today.
I did ask Mr. Steve during this portion of council member comments, I wanted to get a perspective regarding the shared wall. You are the other property owner literally next door to the Crown. Can you share your perspective regarding the shared wall?
Sure, and I just prepared some very brief comments. For clarity, I own those buildings with multiple other business partners, just so that's clear. I and we have been severely impacted by the threats of the Crown demolition. We have, as MABCD pointed out, the building that immediately shares the wall is currently vacant. I don't want to say with certainty, but with 98% certainty it's currently vacant because of the issues that are ongoing with the Crown. We have had 4 separate tenants now agree to lease the space and then back out until there was resolution on the Crown Theater. Their fear was, how do we conduct a business if this guy is threatening to tear the building down? Sure the hell feels like impact to me. Additionally, I've now heard from 2 other tenants in that same building that are expressing concerns about disruption and noise, and those concerns have now indirectly asked about rent concessions. So for people who aren't aware of that, that means they're asking for free or reduced rent. That's yet another impact that demolishing this building can have on me, also a property owner. Speaking to MABCD's comment about a, quote, day or 2 of disruption, I would remind MABCD and this council that we own properties on both sides of the Crown. On another side, the south side, is a property owner, and then on the north side is Douglas Avenue. Where are the cranes, wrecking balls, and other heavy equipment going to go during this process? My parking lot, blocking the driveway to the south where people live, Douglas Avenue, which is about 30 feet from the intersection of Douglas and Hillside. Where's all that stuff going to go? Where are the dumpsters that are going to house all the brick and debris going to go? Middle of the street, we're closing down a lane in my parking lots again? Seems like that should all be part of the plan. Seems like that should be part of a permit request. The applicant has not reached out to me, even though we've reached out to them dozens of times. Not about the sale of the property, not about trying to work along with me when they were first parking their trucks there, and certainly not about, hey, we're thinking about demolishing our building, can we work with you? They haven't reached out to me once. The applicant's contractor hasn't reached out to us once. There was perhaps an unclear comment that the, quote, neighboring business owner hadn't responded. False. I haven't been asked. Would love to have that opportunity to talk. So would my tenants, who are very concerned. Also, MABCD hasn't reached out to me. I would feel like that should have been part of a demo request plan when there's a shared wall building. Shouldn't MABCD have a concern if the property owner and or the property owner's contractor didn't? Isn't that why we have oversight? Hey, if you're not concerned about, damage to the surrounding businesses, we are supposed to be. That is our role. MABCD has not. Stand for any questions more on the shared wall stuff.
Anyone have questions regarding the shared wall? Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you.
We will now bring it back to the bench for further comments. Vice Mayor Glasscock.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Councilmember Shepard has a motion here in a minute, and I understand why people care very deeply about the Crown Uptown. I do too. I believe it's part of Wichita's history, and I believe that the city should make a serious effort to find an alternative to demolition. I also will say that property rights should not be the secondary consideration. They're one of the foundational principles of our nation, and as a free society, and government has a responsibility to protect those rights, even when a property carries history, memories, and deep meaning for the community. But I do believe the city's role is to provide a fair process, bring people together, and help identify realistic alternatives. And it should not be our role to indefinitely control property rights because we would prefer a different outcome. But I will support the full 180-day preservation period contemplated by the ordinance. I believe that gives city staff the time to work through issues with neighboring property owners who share a wall and determine whether there's a legitimate buyer, operator, or finance plan, and hopefully another solution to preserve the building. If a credible path moves forward during that time, I want the city to be able to help facilitate it, and I think we should help facilitate it. But I will not support extending this process beyond 180 days simply because we don't like the answer. If there is no viable exit, then I don't believe that we should stand in the way of the property owner exercising their rights, because I believe it's foundational to the country, but I will support the 180-day hold today.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Vice Mayor, for your thoughts and for your support on this 180-day interim control. I do have a question. I don't know if it's for legal or for Scott. When would it be appropriate, or could it be appropriate for the Wichita Historical Preservation Board to take a second look at this to see if it's even worth bringing it back to the bench?
In terms of when it's appropriate, that would depend on, well, there's a couple different options. One is if the city indicates that they're interested in exploring the nomination process, right? That's a formal process, a nomination process, and you move forward, and that is one of the steps is that it goes to the Wichita Historic Preservation Board. The second option would be that you could just simply send it there, just tell staff that you're very interested in getting their opinion, and then I guess if there's support for that, then we can do that. What I would add to that is that as part of the process back in 2025, we did hire the consultant that prepared the report. The recommendation of the consultant was that it is eligible for listing. It meets the criteria for listing on a historic register, and that the Wichita Historic Preservation Board had a similar finding in that they were supportive or found that it met the criteria. I don't know that their opinion would be different this year as opposed to last year.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm not going to spring down on my colleagues today, but I definitely am interested in having a conversation of what that might look like in the very near future as we talked about the historic nature of this building. And so I want to make sure that I'm meeting with the appropriate stakeholders. So again, Mayor, thank you. And I do want to take a moment to just be very methodical about this. And I want to address the discussion that we've heard today about several things, and particularly property rights. Many of my colleagues know that I respect property rights, and I consider myself to be what some call, for better or worse, business friendly. I want Wichita to be a place where businesses can invest, grow, and succeed. And I know that economic vitality, that property owners and those who invest in businesses play a big part of that. However, being business friendly cannot mean that we yield to the wishes of a property owner every single time, regardless of the broader public interest. Because when we do that, we aren't just making a decision particularly for a business owner, we're making a decision that affects thousands of constituents who don't have a seat at that table. And in this particular community, and I would argue every neighborhood and community, that is what I've consistently heard, is that they really want our city to be a city that balances the desire for strong, good business with also hearing the voices of constituents in the everyday neighbor. So property rights do matter, but so do the voices of our residents, the history, our neighborhoods, and the long-term interest of this city. Interim control does not take on Crown Uptown. It does not permanently stop development or even the dreams or the revisioning of the development. It gives us 180 days to have meaningful, thoughtful, methodical conversations to explore the alternatives and to determine whether there is a responsible path forward. You know, as I was doing my research on this, I kept coming back to Doris Kerr-Lockins. Just 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to visit, once again, the Kansas African American Museum. And for those who are not familiar, where Calvary Baptist is where the current Kansas African American Museum is today, surrounded by the Sedgwick County Jail. And a lot of folks may not remember, but there was a time when Calvary Baptist Church was threatened by demolition. And there was a young lady by the name of Doris Kerr-Lockins who fought because she understood that this historic place, once gone, we don't get a second chance. That's the choice before us today. We can respect the property owner's rights while still asking whether there is a way to preserve something that belongs to the story of Wichita and that is meaningful to the constituents of College Hill. I believe 180 days is a reasonable amount of time to ask that question, and in the spirit of Doris Kerr-Lockins, I will make sure that we initiate the 180-day interim control to bring all parties back to the table, take the time to have meaningful, methodical conversation to make sure we're moving towards a path where both parties hopefully can be satisfied. But if that is not the case, I want to be very clear that I will use every tool in my toolbox, even if I don't have the votes, to align myself with the needs and the desires of my constituents, because that is who got me here, and that's who I deserve to put my full fight and faith towards. So thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Johnston.
Thank you, Mayor. Being one that is interested in finance and business, the mortgage by a bank is $1,432,000 on that building. So we don't know how much has been paid, and we don't know what the balance is, but it's a pretty big note. So coming due, there may be a problem. So thank you.
Councilmember Ballard.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say, as we can see today, this is not just important to District 1, but it's important to all of our districts across the city. So I will be in support of the 180-day extension, if that's the will of the body. And also just to thank Councilmember Shepherd for being the newest on the council. And this is a big topic. And I just appreciate you working hard, doing the work, doing your due diligence to see what we can do to potentially open doors. But I just appreciate you taking the time with your constituents and really all of us to bring us alongside.
And I want to add a couple of comments before I will send it back to the council member who represents this district. I specifically sent an email on July 29th to the owner asking specifically, I've gotten questions asking how much you'd be willing to sell the property to another private owner with no intention for the city to buy this property. But I can see that there are interested parties and having further conversation is prudent. In addition, hearing Steve, who is the property owner, and his other owners in that consortium that has a shared wall with this specific building we're talking about, he also has property rights. Therefore, I am in favor of having a delay so that there are conversations that need to be had between the parties that are both property owners, in addition for community to do what they would like to do. I've heard multiple of you share ideas, but again, The city does not own this property, therefore talking to the property owner would be the most prudent thing to do. So with that, I will now pass it to Councilmember Shepherd.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the Wichita City Council enter an interim control for up to 180 days related to the Crown Uptown Theater.
Second.
Motion second, discussion. See none, Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Motion passes 7-0.
Mayor,
We will now.
if I may just clarify, Mr. Beto has a clarification on that language.
If I could, ma'am, I just wanted to clarify. It is the motion is to extend it for 180 days.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to get that clarification.
Attorney Magana, do I need to change anything?
From the date of receipt of July 27th, just to make that in the motion. That was all we needed. If that's
Do I need to
okay.
do anything else?
Well, you agreed that that was the motion.
Yep,
Thank
I
you.
agree.
Thank you.
Fully. Times 10.
Again, motion passes 7-0, what is the date for 180 days from the application?
That I don't know, but it's calculated from July 27th, so we'll announce.
Yes, that would be January 23rd, 2027.
You, Scott, this item is now having 180 days until January 23rd of 2027.